Didn't say that.
Drinking all your life.
I have an issue with my water in here. I took a drink and it started dripping down my chin.
It's more on you than in you. Sort that in the mouth.
Mess. You don't need a we used to like a recorder being here, we don't need that.
Hmm.
Or you have it over there.
Mm-hmm.
Is everybody ready? All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the 4A Economic Development Corporation Wednesday, November 13th at 5 p.m. All members are present and we do have a quorum. Move on to item number B, the public forum. Seeing that there's no one to speak in the forum, we'll go ahead and open and close the forum and move on to items in number C, discussion action items. Number 1, discuss, consider, and act upon the regular meeting minutes from October 9th, 2019.
I just had one change on those. Was it item 11? Coming back out of executive session, we made, or said I made a motion to approve a performance agreement, but there was nothing indicated about the vote.
Okay, so you said item number
Item 11,
11.
small. I want your skins on there as well.
I'm sure I seconded it.
You did?
Yeah, because Frank was
Oh, that's right.
the leader, dude,
I
so.
wasn't here, I was like, I don't
It was
remember
a
it.
3-0. Yeah, no, you weren't
No
here.
wonder I don't remember. Okay, good.
Who's our minute person now?
Tracy wrote them, but
I know she,
Yeah.
do we have them in a Word document somewhere?
So I think we could just approve it, whatever you need to amend, so Cash, Nancy seconded, and then you all three probably voted.
We did.
who seconded?
Yeah.
Terry, who seconded the
It was
motion?
unanimous.
Cash.
Cash.
Okay, Cash seconded.
Yes.
Yes,
And then
and
it was
then
unanimous.
all three of
Three
them
of them.
approved, because I was absent.
So you can make the motion to accept the minutes.
Yeah. We're just giving Tracy excuse me, Leslie, the correction.
I'll make a motion that we accept the October 9, 2019 minutes, except for the correction on item 11 to reflect the vote that was taken.
We have a motion from Member Bosniak, a second from Member Weeks to approve the October 9, 2019 meeting minutes as amended on item 11. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Pass unanimous. Okay. We'll move on to item number 2, discuss, consider, and act upon the October 2019 financial reporting and related items. Ms. Phyllis.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're going to be looking at September the 30th, 2019, that has been updated as of October the 31st of 2019, and then we'll also be looking at the October 31, 2019 financials. You will see another update for both September and October in next month's meeting, but then after that, we will have received 12 months worth of sales tax receipts, and we'll just go on from there. As of September 30th, 2019, we had year-to-date revenues of $662,069. We had year-to-date expenses of $245,897, bringing, as of 9/30/2019, a net revenue of $416,172, and bringing your total fund balance as of 9/30 to $2,746,624. Your month-to-date expenses for the month of September included just your routine payroll. You had some legal services, some office supplies, a couple of subscription renewals and for charges related to the QT grand opening.
So I looked at them, I compared it to the first draft that we had. There was a 20 grand change in the sales tax revenue. Is that because we're taking the full vote now and we've replaced an accrual with an actual?
That's correct.
Okay. And then just for the board, they added $2,500 of legal expense that wasn't in the previous September. So that's now in there, so it's version 2, and I guess we'll get version 3, so. I'd make a motion to approve the revised September financials as drafted.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Member Bosniak, a second from Member Weeks to approve the September 2019 financials as amended. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Okay, so October.
Okay, moving on to October. As of October 31, you had year-to-date revenues of $73,225, and that is a reflection of just 1 month accrual on your sales tax, and your interest earned year-to-date as of 10/31 is $1,350. Your year-to-date expenses are $212,210, the bulk of which is the payment to B&B Concrete Sawing for the demo and replacement of that South Aston Road. That is going to bring you 10/31. It's going to give you a net expense of $138,985, bringing your total fund balance to $2,607,638.
And I was talking to Phyllis earlier that that concrete work actually came in under budget or what we approved, so that's a rarity, but a welcome one.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
I make a motion to approve the October financials as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Member Bosniak and a second from Member Weeks to approve the October 2019 financials. All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. Is that it for financials?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for the listing summary.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. So we'll move on to item number 3. Discuss, consider, and act upon amending the performance agreement by and between Sunnyvale Hospitality LLC and the Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation.
Prior to Tracy leaving, she had prepared all 3 of these, items 3, 4, and 5, just basically pushing the dates out because the building is not done yet. The dates are a little different, and we went over these in 4B last night, and we found one error in the Hope Coffee date. It was just off by 1 day. I think it says March 2nd, it should be March 1st. So we'll make that correction. And my understanding is that item 3 is really about kind of the co-working space. Item 4 is Hope Coffee, and item 5 is actually the actual building. So that's, it was a little confusing to me because those are only spell it out in the agreement. So they were kind of blending together. So I did meet with Eric Saucer and went over these to make sure we have them correct. So all 3 of those would just be amended. We just get them executed and get them to them, extending their time due to weather.
I just have one question. The extension of the overall agreements that far out, is that required? Do we need to do that? Go out that far with the agreements?
I honestly, these were filled out before Tracy left, so I didn't question the duration. I thought they were part of the original contracts. It didn't, Phyllis and I were just sitting here talking that we went from January to November. And I mean, we also questioned that last night, why was it so long? But he didn't know the history of why we made that change, so.
Somewhat performance related, but
Was there
maybe
some?
we gave them extra time just in case because they have to put in their infrastructure and all that for the
Well,
4 years.
but the deal was,
5 years.
they would get their money on CO, and there's no way we'd go out that far. And I didn't recall, and maybe my lack of understanding of the agreement, is there something that required, staying open for a 3-year period or 4-year period after, because these incentives are being paid basically at CO? So I don't recall the theory behind the long date to begin with.
Sorry, I don't either.
I mean, originally, he was gonna be in at some point way before now, and then we started extending all the agreements because rain delays and whatever.
Right.
But I don't know why we would go out 4 or 5 years on this, just for the venue that he's putting up there.
Well, and particularly as it relates to the 4A election and keeping things open that far down the road, it's just like, do we really need it? And maybe it's worth a follow-up just to say, hey, what is the reason for that?
Plus, it's a year, almost 2 years later.
Well, this
Why would we
is,
need to extend that from January 31st, 2024 to November 30th, 2025? We're not even in 2020 yet.
well, but it goes back to why was January 31, 2024 in there to begin with, and I don't recall.
And why is that not enough? That's the
Did
second question.
Why?
5 years from now.
4B pass them as
Yes.
amended?
Yeah, we just tweaked that one date, the March 1st date, but otherwise they were passed.
Well, I will say that with 4A's demise,
It's true.
we may want to consider having, I don't know,
Yeah,
I'm just,
and we have an agenda item to discuss that, but as it's relevant, I think we can talk to it now. And we will be making lists of all of the commitments that are made, and we'll be making financial provisions to meet those commitments. So we'll put money like in a special account that will be used, that when the time comes, there'll be money to fulfill those commitments. So, I mean, I would, if that's what you all originally agreed upon that time, I wouldn't alter that. But I don't know why you originally agreed to that time. I mean, it looks like it's just being extended proportionally, is that you agree?
well, that top date, the term date's going out 11 months, 10 months. And the other dates are going out, what, 3 or 4?
Yeah, and I'm not sure why this one was so much different. And I can talk to him, I actually was on the phone with him today, I can follow up with him and ask, why did you request this? So I feel kind of bad that we're having a meeting and I don't know why it was so much longer.
That's okay.
Otherwise,
I would just say, I just don't like terms extended just for the sake of
Okay.
doing it.
So we could table this one, and I can go back to him and inquire why was there a request that it go out farther? I just looked at my notes from Tracy, there's nothing that talks to it. Leslie, you don't recall anything? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't.
That may be making a bigger issue than it is for you guys. I don't mean to speak for the board.
The second one and the third one are more in line with the delays what we talked about.
Totally.
The first one is the only one in question, really. So, March 2020 is, you may ask for another extension down the road from that. In which case, who grants that extension if we're not around anymore? The council?
I don't know.
And Phyllis is just pointing out that that particular piece of each of the agreements do go out that far.
Yeah.
So, I need to talk to all 3 of them about why did we choose to go out so much farther, if you'd like.
Even though the entire commitment's $500 something thousand dollars, it only applies to our percentage. Correct? Which our commitment, remaining commitment's $93,750.
On that one
Yeah, that's our percentage
and the other
of
2
the
are
entire grant.
Susan, will we meet again in earlier December?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, right now, we don't have a date to where you would stop meeting, so
Right.
we'll continue with meetings until such time that we don't need them. So I would very much anticipate that you would continue meeting through December.
So, given that we may meet in earlier December because of the holidays, maybe we ought to table this until we get a better handle on
Well, do you think it's,
it. Because it's not that.
does
long.
it warrant doing that, I guess is my question.
I'm with you.
I wouldn't extend it at all,
But
unless
you've
there's some.
extended it a few times before this, right? So I'd have to go back and look at the original agreements to see if maybe this is now starting to align with how many times it's been extended previously,
Yeah, I think it would.
so that the term is the same as what it original was, but I'd have to go back and look. I don't know that off the top of my head.
You would.
Are all three of these tied into one?
No, she said, well,
Could we just pass on this first?
is that what you want to do?
Because the other two are pretty in line, March 2020.
She said, she thinks 3 is like co-created, 4 is Hope Coffee, and then 5 would be the building itself.
Well,
So,
the first one is Sunnyvale Hospitality, which is co-create.
correct.
And that's the one I'm looking at that has, that's the one that I was pulling up for the November 30th, 2025 term date. And the original January 31, 2024 date.
The second one shows November 30th of 2025, unless I'm looking at it wrong.
I think, what I'm saying is, I think, didn't they do them all the same on the term dates?
I don't think so, because we handled these individually as they came along.
But I think
I
it's.
just see the first one going out 5 years, bro. 2025, the others are March 2020.
Okay, so I guess, then I'm looking at it wrong. Because I'm not seeing.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to try to
Okay, so when I go on this agenda and I go to
I
item
would change that. Just
number 4, right?
No, Hope Coffee is the same thing.
Let's go to that.
Well, 3 show
That's
2025.
Yeah.
This one shows 2025 too.
So all three have the same term ending date. And we can go back and look at the original term to just see if that's what the issue is that because we've extended it a few different times, the term never moved and now she's catching the term up. That's the only guess we have, but we won't know that without looking at the original agreements.
All 3 of them have that 2025 date.
I know they do.
I guess I'm looking at different.
But the
I
point
think the
is, the
question is,
payout
what's
is
the-
March. The
Yeah.
payout has to be March of next year. So what's the other 3 years for?
Are there other provisions?
Well, the payout's
The callback.
conditional upon getting a CO.
CO?
So, they're not gonna, I mean, they could get a CO by March 2020, but that's coming up.
Susan, aren't they responsible for maintaining
Yeah,
and
that's
operating a
what I
retail
was-
business
Yeah,
and job creation and
and
retention over the length of the term?
It's item D.
Why it's extending out. I'm sorry, I'm having problems with my agenda not pulling this up.
I'm sorry, Susan, what section?
When I'm reading it, it's item D, job creation and retention. See, and during the term of this agreement, developers should deliver to Sunnyvale for
Oh, and maintain.
annual
Okay.
compliance verification.
Maybe
So-
that's just a,
Yeah,
that's on them to perform.
Keep the jobs during
yeah.
that time.
It's annual compliance, and then there's probably a clawback, so.
But that's fine. I mean, it's better for the town to have a longer term date because it just means folks need to be employed longer, which is fine with me. And if there is a clawback, I can't recall if there was.
I'm
or not.
reading. See if I can find it. But that is part of the agreement.
There it is.
Yeah, there's the section on default. Section 8 has the effect of an event of default. 30 days to cure it.
Yeah, Hope Coffee's 2025.
So that refers back to section 7, which under A, the general event of default is failure to comply with any term, obligation, or covenant in this agreement during the term.
So the term extends to the 20.
So I'm not sure what the actual clawback is for a job, whatever, but
Yeah.
it's,
Says shall become immediately due and payable by developer to
I
Sunnyvale.
mean, does that mean all?
I mean, in my experience, it's normally proportionate period. So if they retain the jobs for 4 out of 5 years, then that percentage pro rata. But I mean, you could interpret it the other way, that it's all. It doesn't really define it in this agreement.
So I,
The
That's the
amounts
purpose of the
provided by
25.
4A EDC to developer pursuant to section 5A of this agreement shall become immediately due and payable by developer to Sunnyvale.
for any uncured default under any general term
Mhm.
covenant within the agreement, which is the job, which is the CO,
It's
which
the
is
full,
everything.
it's the full load.
So it benefits us to have that date.
I
kicked.
remove my objection to the term date.
Okay, then I have a question. Can we make one motion to approve 3, 4, and 5, or do you want us to do it individually?
I would do it individually.
Okay. Makes sense.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you for that, because now it all makes sense to us.
Really.
You're all shaking your head.
Yes.
All right, so then I'll entertain a motion on item 3.
How would we style this? Motion. Second amended Sunnyvale top pay performance agreement between Sunnyvale Hospitality, 4A.
Just read item number 3, just want to approve the amended performance agreement.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the amended performance agreement between Sunnyvale Hospitality LLC and the Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Member Cash, a second from Member Bosniak to approve the amended performance agreement by and between Sunnyvale Hospitality LLC and the Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation. All in favor? It passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to item number 4. And this one refers to Hope Coffee. Discuss, consider, and act upon amending the performance agreement by and between Hope Coffee, Inc. and the Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation.
Is this the one that has the date change in it that needs to be made?
Actually, we just looked at it, and for some reason, it's right in the version that was with your agenda. It was wrong on 4B, so I think we're good.
So we don't have, this one's okay, we don't have to amend it, okay? So then move on to item number 5.
We have to approve for it.
Just approve item 4.
Oh, so it has been amended.
I'm saying it doesn't need to be amended.
Doesn't need to be fixed, the one that we represented.
We just assumed the same errors were in both packets, but they're,
When you look in here, you're going to see 2 red line drafts in each of the agreements.
That's what I was looking at. But y'all,
Well, I'm looking at, this is the agenda.
well, I'm looking at, see, mine.
It printed weird. Is yours all jumbled?
yeah, that's why I'm struggling on it. Like our versions are gobbledygook, so I'm having trouble keeping up here.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended performance agreement by and between Hope Coffee, Inc. and Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Member Bosniak, a second from Member Weeks to approve the amended performance agreement by and between Hope Coffee, Inc. and the Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation as presented. All in favor? It also passes unanimously. We move on to item number 5. Discuss, consider, and act upon amending the performance agreement by and between Hope Development Partners 1 LLC and the Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation.
Are we good? I'll make a motion that we approve the amended performance agreement between Hope Development Partners 1 LLC and Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation as presented.
A motion from Member Cash, a second from Member Weeks to approve the amended performance agreement by and between Hope Development Partners 1 LLC and the Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation as presented. All in favor? Okay. So we'll move on to item number 5. Discuss results of election and required action.
Okay, item 6. So I just wanted to give you an update. We have not canvassed the results of the election yet because we had a couple of absentee ballots that had not been returned. So we're actually going to canvass the results of the election tomorrow night at a special called meeting. But all of the counts right now are indicating that it does pass. I have reached out to your attorney and gotten preliminary directions of, okay, what are our next steps? He provided a pretty good list of how we file these results with the comptroller and those steps. So between Rachel, Liz, Phyllis, and myself, we're working through getting that already. But I have met with our attorney as well, just to talk about, okay, what else has to be done in relation to this board and all of the funds that are in your accounts and all of the obligations that you've contractually entered into. So she's given me the local government code section, and we walked through it together. I'm taking that information and combining it with what your attorney gave us so that we will end up with a step-by-step plan to make sure nothing's missed, that we do it correctly. And then Liz is also talking with our auditors just about how financially do we set this up on our end. So I don't feel like it's a really protracted amount of time, but I do think we need to make sure that we are prepared to continue to meet for at least another month or two to see all of these steps through. There is action that's required by the board to make some of these things happen. So we really appreciate you continuing to serve to kind of see this through to the end. And as I get a list approved by the attorneys, I'll send it to you so that you all can see the step-by-step process. And the other thing that we are going to have to do is, the council is interested in representatives from 4A joining 4B. We can't make that board any bigger, but there are people who are naturally rolling off that board, and they really want to look at making sure that some representation, transitions over. So I'm planting that seed with you all to give you time to think about that if you have interest in joining that board. If not, we've had a lot of other discussions about other boards that we're looking at, other what we call roundtable groups. So I think they really want to make sure that we hold on to the brain capacity here and not lose that in terms of advising the town. Just because 4A is not going to be a board in the future, I think they feel very much in need of your involvement with the community. So we're looking at ways that we could do that.
Will we get the same pay?
Yeah. Don't forget the boards and commissions event is coming up. That's your big win.
Is there a particular number of positions that might be open on 4B?
So we know there is one for sure where that person's rolling off. I mentioned it to 4B last night just about, hey, if you're not, really desiring to continue, let me know so that we know if there are additional seats available. But there's also another group that the mayor is starting that might fit a couple of you. So I don't think it's just that opportunity. And not only that, but the council has discussed the fund balance that will remain. They would like to retain it for economic development. So just because there's not a 4A corporation, there's still going to be need for some input on economic development. So we'll have to wait and see how that develops. So any specific
Thinking about
questions?
how we want to serve.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Because that, probably of everything, that was their biggest concern, was not losing that appreciation.
We've got a lot of great experience on this.
Yeah. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions, or if you have specific questions about, hey, how's this gonna work, how's that gonna work, shoot me an email so that I can pull it together with the, all the discussion I'm having with both of the lawyers. And, I just think it really behooves us to talk to both. They have different expertise to make sure that we're on the exact right path of how we get this done.
So you may not know the answer to this question, so the 4A fund balance, I guess, after all of our obligations, will not go into the general fund, but it won't go into 4B?
So right now, my understanding, and please don't ever hold me to any of this because I'm still learning. This is like kind of a once in a lifetime, sort of like standing up a police department. So, but my understanding is no, it wouldn't be rolled into 4B. It would be rolled into the general fund. But they have indicated their desire to keep it kind of, in some sort of account or line item that would be held for economic development purposes, is what they've indicated to me thus far.
Don't we have a few things hanging?
Obligations.
Yeah, I mean, that we haven't specifically approved, but have been presented to us. 2 or 3 deals, I can't remember.
I think there's one under executive session tonight that we'll talk about. And then I have 2 or 3 sources of information that we'll be cross-checking. Finance has started putting together a list. I had Tracy do a big spreadsheet of every incentive we've given that she could ever locate so that we'll know. And so we'll be cross-checking several sources to make sure we identify. But most importantly, that money is not vanishing. It's going to be there. So if there is something that we we don't know about that crops up, the funds will be available to handle it.
Anybody else?
Good.
Any other questions? Okay. So, we're going to recess into executive session pursuant to Chapter 551, Subchapter D of the Texas Governmental Code, Section 551.087 Economic Development, Project AC, and Section 551.074 Personnel Matters Economic Development Director at 5:34 p.m.
And we do need a vote to go into executive session. Yes, sir.
Okay.
A motion from Member Cash and a second from Member Bosniak to move into executive session. All in favor? So we're going to take this in on. Okay, so let me get that from my agenda, sorry. Okay, we're going to reconvene into open session, and there's no action necessary to take, and it's at 6:07 p.m. We also will adjourn at the same time, 6:07. Good?
Thank you.
So what, and I don't know if we should have talked about this when you were talking about item number 6, but since it will just be a type B, they'll be doing a lot more economic development than they did in the past. Because, I know they'll still do parks, but
I think that was why they wanted represented.
that's what I'm.